You mentioned Magic the Gathering earlier. You and me are both big Magic the Gathering fans. If we ever meet, we're sitting down for a game. And you even use Magic the Gathering in your design discussion, the video on YouTube from a while ago, where you talk about Magic having sets that came out every 3 or 4 months.
Yes.
Now, that was very true back then, that has since changed. Magic the Gathering used to have constant sets that came out in consistent distances between them, and players knew the next set, and there were spoiler seasons, and the set came out, and it was all great, and it was easy to keep up with. It was easy to collect everything. Now, the amount of cards that Magic the Gathering has brought out is overwhelming, and there are so many versions of so many cards, and there are so many packs out right now that it's never not spoiler season. It's always spoiling something else. And that has had the effect of driving away the people who wanted to collect everything, because it's now almost impossible to do, or it's prohibitively expensive. How do you as a designer approach the idea of not overwhelming the player base with content, even though it's a proven business tactic that is incredibly profitable?
That's a great question, and I personally have a lot of very strong feelings about the amount of Magic cards being printed. I was actually trying to do a relatively comprehensive collection, and you mentioned it's impossible or at least prohibitively expensive. So for my Magic the Gathering collection, I don't really treat money as a barrier, and so it's not just the expensive that's a problem, it's actually physically impossible to try to get all the different languages and so on, because the rate they print cards exhausts the rate at which I can find people worldwide to source them in all the different languages for all the different variations. There's a lot of ranting about the difficulty of collecting cards at the moment. It was certainly a lot easier in the past, and that's had repercussions on Path of Exile. It's meant that we're being very careful, both in terms of the rate at which we release content, but also for things that players are collecting in the game, we want to make sure it's released at a reasonable rate that's actually possible to keep up, because if you run the treadmill too fast, everyone falls off and then no one wants to play on it anymore. With regard to content releases, though, we found that our 4-a-year thing is enough that players are kept busy. Now, this is going to sound weird, because a lot of people's experience with Path of Exile is they play for a few weeks really hard and then think, that was awesome, I can't wait for the next one. And if there was one sooner, I'd probably play that. But having time to rest is actually important. You know, having time to play, get your fill of Path of Exile and then play another game till the next Path of Exile expansion comes out works well for us. You know, it gives us the ability to focus our marketing on those 4 spikes a year, focus our content releases on them, have some time for the development team to get a bit of downtime between the expansions for us to stop and reflect on stuff. And while it's entirely possible to throw money at the problem and release 8 expansions a year, I think that would burn out literally everyone involved, even though it would probably temporarily double revenue for a while.
And this idea of always having the player play the game. You have a game that you can only play and no other game. You must play this game. You seem very against that. A lot of games now, they want the player to be committed to them forever. They release the daily, weekly, monthly login. They release special, are you playing for 3 hours, you get this. If you're playing for 6 hours, you get this. Don't miss the next update. You seem to have the attitude of players should play multiple games, and that likely comes from you being a gamer yourself. Why have you not decided to follow this traditional marketing path of having players only play Path of Exile and nothing else?
Part of it is acknowledging that they're going to go and play other games at the point that they're done, and embracing that. You know, if that's the nature of what's going to happen, we may as well support that. It's also good for health reasons. Like, people get pretty burnt out playing a fast clicking game for the length of time they do. When someone's playing Path of Exile properly, they are obsessed over it, right? Like, once you get to maps, we own your soul is pretty much the thing that we say to players. I've experienced that this league myself, right? I've certainly had days I was late to work because I wake up and think, I can play Path of Exile before I go to the office, and then time goes by. You know, it's a very, very addictive game, and so I would rather that we let people play that for as long as they want to and then come back to it. And the nice thing is we've trained people, we will be releasing content on a regular schedule forever. They can have a lifelong relationship with Path of Exile, but it's not going to be a domineering thing that prevents them actually living their life outside of that.
And that's a very genuine way of making a game.